Cochran live from my car. Got a couple of deaths to report on and an interview with Senator Dick Durbin on this episode of Live from My Office coming up. But first, a word from Woody Buick, sponsoring Live from My Office. Woody?
Woody here. Why Woody, you ask? Chicagoland's top-selling Buick GMC dealer with the largest Buick GMC inventory in stock. Over 1,000 of the hot new Buick and GMCs to choose from. Search Woody Buick GMC, Naperville and Gurnee, and see for yourself. Easy as 1, 2, 3. Click, shop, and drive home today. No shortage at Woody Buick GMC, Naperville and Gurnee. Woody needs your trade-in today. Hurry for best selection at year-end. Hope to see you soon, Woody. GMC, we are professional grade.
As I always say, if I'm endorsing a product, it's because I spend my money on that product. Same with Woody. In previous episodes, I may have revealed this secret. It's not a secret anymore. I've purchased at least a dozen cars from Woody over the years. So save yourself some time. Even if you want to shop around, make sure you get to Woody Buick in Naperville and in Gurnee in the Chicago area. And if you're shopping out of town, just Google up Woody Buick because it's well worth the trip. You could buy from the moon. Woody will get the car to you. All right, let's get on with the show. Welcome to Live from My Office, live from my car to get things going here. The guest today is Senator Dick Durbin. I'll be talking to him about his legacy and leaving the Senate after, 40 plus years in Congress, in the House and the Senate. He's seen everything, but today we're going to talk about some stuff in the news, so we'll get to that in a second. Before we do that, I have to talk about a couple of deaths, including one of my old friend, Orion Samuelson. Orion and I had lost touch over the last few years, but we were good pals when we worked together. I always had tremendous respect for him. And what Orion did for America's farmers, along with Max Armstrong, it's incalculable. I'm not exaggerating when I tell you that those guys were Elvis. They were Batman and Robin. When they would go to these county fairs, south of I-80, as we call it in Illinois, lines would go on and on and on, and Orion would make sure he talked to everybody. If you ever wanted to get Orion wound up, and I might have occasionally done that once or twice, all you had to do was mention almond milk, and he'd remind you, you can't milk an almond. Wasn't a big fan of GMO, genetically modified products for food as well. He loved the farm, and the man lived to be 90 plus, eating big old steaks and potatoes and everything, and whole milk and everything else you're not supposed to eat. But I loved Orion, and I loved what he did on WGN radio for all those years. He was a part of TV before that and a part of history. You can actually find this online on YouTube, I think. Oh, and by the way, subscribe to our YouTube channel, Live from My Office. But Orion was the first to announce the assassination of John F. Kennedy, which is pretty remarkable. He met every president. I don't think I'm stretching on this. He met every president from Truman to Trump, and was just as comfortable in a room of CEOs as he was in a farm field, smelling of things that smell on farms. We had a bond in particular, I think, over the fact that I grew up in rural upstate New York around dairy farms, and I could talk farming a little bit with him. And I don't want to brag here, but I once milked a cow on a one-legged stool. Not quite sure why we couldn't have the other legs to this day. But he was a good man. He had a great run. My condolences to his lovely wife, Gloria, and his kids, and his grandkids. So, Orion, I know by now you are up there in heaven, and you're explaining farming to some of the other folks who didn't quite get it in their lifetime. But America's farmers owe a great debt of gratitude. And here's the good thing about America's farmers. They're more than willing to pay it. A great debt of gratitude to Orion Samuelson, the Big O. Thank you for all you did. Thank you for the friendship. And thank you for the memories as well. Before we get to the other death of the day, let's talk about the death of radio, because it seems to kind of go hand in hand. CBS Radio News Network announced the end of their existence earlier this week. This is part and parcel to the new way of getting things, whether they be podcasts, or whether they be video, or whether they be streaming. CBS Radio News provides news service to 700 local affiliates. And while in the end, it's only going to be tens of jobs that are lost, that's 60, 70, 80 people still at CBS Radio News who are out. And I think they'd agree with me when I say, more importantly, 700 radio markets who won't have instant access, free factual access to news in their towns anymore. ABC Radio News could be next. They're the world's largest. And I would hate to see them go. Maybe this is a marketing opportunity for them to last a while. But the cat's out of the bag. The top is off the jar. Your analogy here. Radio is no more. And it's very sad for folks like me, or Big O, Orion Samuelson, and others, who made our way. And everything that we have and had in this life was due to the support of listeners and people like you guys who supported what we did. WGN Radio was a phenomenal radio station back in the day. And it was the great honor of my life to do the morning show there. After Wally Phillips, who Orion had a wonderful relationship with, Bob Collins. Big O and Bob Collins are very good friends, and as our mutual friend Spike O'Dell would say, Orion and Bob talked often about sitting on the porch and watching life go by someday. And it does my heart good to think they're doing that now. And after Bob Collins, of course, came Spike. And Spike and I had a lot of fun, as did I when I took the morning show on, and had a great time there. So, Orion, thank you again. And for those folks who think the death of CBS Radio is no big deal, I'm not just an old guy whining about my business going out of business. What happens is you lose access in these 700 plus markets to legitimate local news content, as well as the network content that CBS Radio would bring. And what happens then is, where are those folks going to get their news? Well, folks go online, don't they? And your next door neighbor Gladys in her Facebook account forwarding you articles from fringe sites is not news. It's not good, folks. It's not good. Newspapers, the end of newspapers was not good. The fact that the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal are maybe the last great bastions of reporting in this country is not good. People need to know what's going on. The practice and process of journalism was designed and approved and protected by our Constitution to specifically keep an eye on those in power. And you can't do it when you're out. It's kind of Donald Trump's dream to have all this happen. And it's happening. As far as podcasts go, obviously I appreciate the platform because I'm still on it. But it's not the same. And for people that want to just poo-poo radio and love podcasting, well, that's fine. Good for you. But there are certain things I can't do on this podcast that I could do on the radio, including the fact that when people jump in the car, especially those 50 and older, who are very wrapped up in the news and concerned about their families and eventually their grandchildren, where they're going to get their news product. To my friends who I know and don't know at WBBM in Chicago, I wish you guys well as well. The end of CBS Radio News I know won't mean the end of BBM, but they are a legitimate local news service that can stay in business longer because they're here in Chicago, while others in small towns can't. So, for as long as you can, support your local radio station, boys and girls, because they're not going to be around forever. And the locals can report on all sorts of news, including the news of Donald Trump. We spend a lot of time on Substack, where I write, and also here on this podcast, talking about Trump and the Trumpettes, his minions, and the damage being done to this country. We're not going to go very deep on that right now, except to tell you that before I started recording this introduction to this episode, the news came down that Robert Mueller had died. Robert Mueller, in case you missed it, was the named person for the Mueller report. You'll remember this was the one that was going to show the ties to Trump and Russia and force Trump out of office, or at least into a position where he could never get reelected. Well, the Mueller report stopped short of all of that because Robert Mueller and his team refused to put out an official, what would the word be? Resolution, not so much. Diagnosis, not so much. Summation. They said, and Mueller said clearly in his criticized hearing on Capitol Hill, that while they may not have drawn formal conclusions, there was an agreement that lived in the Justice Department that had been protected, that a sitting president couldn't be prosecuted, and it was up to Congress to handle the president. Well, Congress didn't, because the Republican-controlled House and Senate are cowards. And that continues to this day. And now Trump has started a war that he can't explain, that we have to somehow figure out a way out of, that's costing nearly $1 billion a day. So what did Donald Trump say about Robert Mueller? He continued to show that not only is he the dumbest man to ever occupy the White House, he's also the most classless. He said, and I'm only slightly paraphrasing here, news has come down that Robert Mueller has died. Good. I'm glad he's dead. Now he can't hurt innocent people anymore. Well, let's be honest, Mr. Trump. It's not something you do well, that honesty thing. You're not innocent. And Mueller's findings didn't show that you were. Mueller and the Mueller report, if you took the time to read it, folks, you will see that the conclusion was not drawn specifically because of the rules at the time in the Justice Department. That's the only reason. And the only reason Donald Trump survived that Mueller report and January 6th, the incredible, abhorrent attack on America's capital. And all the things that have come since is because Republicans have protected him to protect them and their cushy jobs while they do nothing for you. It's not a good system. And the Democrats are incredibly weak and embarrassingly so, and have shown no sense of leadership and no real way to give folks on the Republican side confidence that if you vote for a Democrat, they're going to do the job. You got to vote, folks. If your primary has not come up yet, I certainly hope you will. Look at my primary primer on Substack. It explains everything you need to know about primers. There's tons of websites that are out there that can help you figure out when your state primary is. But please show up for it. Remember, the primaries are the playoffs, and the general election in the fall is the Super Bowl. And outside of the presidential election, this midterm election is the biggest vote every 4 years. And frankly, it affects you more than the election to the White House prior to Trump. Nothing affects you as much as Trump because he's a lunatic. So the death of Robert Mueller, I note with sadness as well, but I thank him for his service, as do the members of the FBI. By the way, who are overwhelmingly Republican. And if you could poll them as to who they voted for, the vast majority, I promise you, voted for Trump in 2016. Lesser, certainly, in 2024, after Trump shit all over the FBI and American intelligence. And it became clear that not only was he not a good Republican, he was not a good American, and he was a terrible president. So let's wrap it here by saying, thank you, Big O, for the life you led. And Big O, by the way, hardcore Republican. It's where we separated a little bit at the end, but I still love the man. But thank you, Big O, for all you did and for your legacy of taking care of the American farmer. And thank you, Robert Mueller, as well, for all you did in your life and for your leadership at the FBI. And for those folks at CBS News at the network level, I know many of you, God bless you. You're welcome here anytime if you want to talk. But in the meantime, I hope you're in a position where you can slide into something else. Might I recommend AI? I hear it's big. And you can take care of your families. All right. Thanks for the mixed emotional opening and your patience for it. And now let me get to you a couple of plugs. First and foremost, I mentioned Substack. stevecochran.substack.com. That's where you can find what I write. Also, in addition, and it's called Twit, This Week in Trump. The majority of the time. I don't always write about Trump, but the majority of the time. In addition to Substack, subscribe and follow wherever you listen to this podcast. And if you're watching it on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel. It's Live from My Office, the Live from My Office channel on YouTube. And it's an easy way to subscribe right there as well. I thank Woody Buick for sponsoring us here, and also our friends at Apt Electronics. Each time we do a new episode, I tell you I'm going to give you a phrase that pays. And if you drop me a note on the phrase that pays that says, hey, I heard the phrase that pays, here's what it is, I'm about to reveal it. and you include your mailing address, send it to thecochranshow@gmail.com. And if I get that with your mailing address and the phrase that showed you listen, I will send you a $50 app gift card from our good friends at Apt Electronics. So today's phrase that pays is very simple. It's, in honor of our old friend, it's this. You can't milk an almond. That's today's phrase that pays. Again, you want me to repeat it? You can't milk an almond. So please drop that in a line to me at thecochranshow@gmail.com with your mailing address, and I look forward to hearing from you. All right, let's move on to a conversation with Senator Dick Durbin, live from his office that took place just a couple of days ago. Thanks for being here.
Always a pleasure to see Senator Durbin on my screen here for Live from my office. Senator, good morning, where we are.
Well, good morning to you.
And, through the years, we always talk early because I was always doing a morning show. You've always been an early riser, huh?
Yeah, very much so. And more so as I get older.
You look great. I hope you're feeling well.
I do feel well.
Good.
How about you?
Yeah. I've got a new knee, so I'm ready to race you anytime you want.
Well, I did that a couple of years ago, and so I'm ready.
Before we begin with the hard stuff, the sad news this week, though the man had an incredible life. Orion Samuelson passed.
An amazing man. I used to kind of wonder what in the world was going on at GN when he was waxing eloquent on pork bellies for the people in the listening audience. And I thought to myself, as a downstater, I get it, but I wonder what people in Chicago think about that.
He was Elvis to the farm country, and God bless him, because I'm sure he's taking care of the agriculture on a cloud somewhere now. And we had a lot of laughs over the years, but I knew you wanted to mention him.
What a voice.
Yeah, incredible. Yeah. The midterm elections are now set up, and if Illinois goes the way it looks it will, we will have 2 female senators, one of only, I think, 4 or 5 states to do that.
Well, I can tell you this. I called Juliana yesterday. I've known her for years. She is well qualified to be in the Senate, and I volunteered to campaign for her any time or place she needs it. I'm looking forward to her succeeding me.
You'll leave her something in the office, I'm sure. Something nice. We live in these crazy times, and nobody knows it better than you. Let me just hit you with a couple of topical issues here. DHS funding. As I understand it, ICE is funded. This is about extra money for ICE, which has been turned into a political football on the side of the Republicans. Am I missing anything?
Well, I can just tell you that they've got plenty of money. There is more money that's been appropriated for the ICE forces in our streets than for the United States Marine Corps or the FBI. And you think to yourself, well, they want more money. The heck with that. What we want to make sure is that they're following the law, that they believe in the Constitution. We saw those terrible scenes up in Minneapolis.
Yep.
I don't have to embellish it. It was horrible to see 2 innocent American citizens killed in the streets of Minneapolis. That is just disgusting. Do I want dangerous criminals to be gone from the United States? Sign me up. But when it comes to this notion of provoking people in the neighborhoods like Pilsen and Little Village and having them live in fear, I don't think that's part of America.
The great problem we have is not just the orange Julius Caesar, my words, not yours. I'm wearing orange today, of course, for the Fighting Illini. They'll play Penn in the opening round of the March Madness tournament. But it's not just Donald Trump. It's the people that Donald Trump has surrounded himself with, including Mark Wayne Mullen, who doesn't appear remotely ready for the job. I'm surprised you have any hair left. As you noticed, I've pulled all mine out since he was elected in 2016.
Well, I can tell you what happened yesterday in the committee when Mullen's nomination came before it was unprecedented. I've never seen anything quite like that. Republican Senator from Kentucky, Rand Paul, clearly is not going to vote for this MAGA nominee Mullins to head up the Department of Homeland Security, and they went at it for a long period of time. There is clearly some personal animus there that I wasn't aware of. And Paul said just as bluntly and directly as he could, you have anger issues, and we don't need you in this job. That's a heck of a introduction to the American people.
Well, you'll remember that he actually challenged a union boss. These
Oh,
times we live in, challenged a union boss to a fist fight during a Senate hearing. And it took Bernie Sanders to say, enough, stop it.
well, I've seen him in the gym, Mr. Mullins, Senator Mullins. He's a mixed martial arts guy who's in peak physical condition. And you can tell that he fought in one of those octagon rings in the past. But I don't think that's what we need to run a department that has to be mindful of the constitutional rights of everyone, even to protest and disagree with you.
The Constitution is not optional, though the Trump administration and he himself, of course, treats it as optional every day. And here we go with a war that didn't need to be started. There's no question that we started it. We're complicit in starting it. The money that's being spent, we don't have. Gas in the far western suburbs is $5 a gallon soon. It's $5 a gallon in the city now. And businesses suffer and people suffer. And the Republican members of your Senate body, to me, are committing the greatest bit of malpractice I've ever seen in politics by standing by and letting it happen.
Steve, I can tell you it was 22 years ago. I was in the Senate and we voted on the invasion of Iraq. We did have a fulsome debate under President George W. Bush about whether we should invade or not. There were 23 of us who voted no. I was one of them. There was one Republican, 22 Democrats. And you remember what the rationale was: weapons of mass destruction, Saddam Hussein. Well, it took no time at all for our military to invade and knock Saddam Hussein from his roost. But then we started looking for weapons of mass destruction, couldn't find them. And I felt that we committed ourselves to 10 years there. We lost 4,500 American lives in the process. It was a mistake from the start, and we're doing it all over again. There have been 7 different explanations, I've counted them, as to why we invaded Iran. And what it boils down to is there was no imminent threat to the United States or its allies. Prime Minister Netanyahu in Israel, this has been his dream for years, that the United States would initiate an invasion. He did it. He achieved it. And it's at our expense, and it's not something I think President Trump can walk away from easily.
No, and to what end? To what end? Distractions continue, whether it's the Epstein Trump files or anything along the way, and there are 7 reasons that he has stated. We can't support it. We can't afford it. And I don't know how it ends, except in the deaths of boys and girls, young men and young women, of a lot of people in red states that supported him.
Exactly. I mean, that's the bottom line. The reason Article 1, Section 8 says Congress shall declare war, and it was the greatest general in the history of the United States, George Washington, who signed in support of that provision to take away the sole power of the president to declare a war. And the reason, of course, is the American people have the last word. Right. It's their children whose lives are on the line.
I know you've got to run in just a couple of minutes here. You've seen everything in the Senate and in the House, and I'm sure that people are tugging at your leg to write a book. But you've still got a lot of work to do between now and the time you leave office. I don't know how you do it. I don't know how anybody that wants the best for America does it at this point, how you get up in the morning and go to work. How can the greatest country in the world be held hostage by Donald Trump?
Well, let me tell you, Steve, the bottom line is this. I believe in this country. I mean, literally.
As do I.
I've given my life to public service and happy to do it. There were other paths I could have followed, but the American people and the people of Illinois have given me a chance of a lifetime. Tuesday's election was the first time since 1976 that my name wasn't on the ballot.
How about that?
It's been a long run. And I'm opposed to term limits. Let the voters decide. For some members, 20 years is not long enough. For others, 2 years is too long. And I've had a good run at it. And I've witnessed a lot. I'll just tell you that I believe in this country. We're going to weather our storms and come together. I believe it.
And I'll let you go on this as you go home. Have you been given any rules of the House by your lovely wife after all these years? Go, look, I've got things under control here. You don't get to make the decisions here.
Loretta says to me at some point, she'll look at her watch and say, aren't you supposed to catch a plane? That's how we end all our arguments.
We need you more than ever, and all of your right-thinking colleagues, including Congressman Quigley, who I was happy to see is reelected, regardless of his choice to try to run for mayor or not. Anyway, difficult times, difficult days, but let's all share in the faith for this country that we're better than this and we can beat this. And I thank you for your time this morning. I look forward to talking to you again this summer.
Looking forward to it, Steve. Thanks.
Thank you.
Before we wrap up, another word from my friend Woody at Woody Buick.
Woody here, Woody Buick GMC, Naperville and Gurnee, Chicagoland's largest selection of GMC Sierras, Yukons, and Acadias. Search Woody Buick GMC, Naperville, Gurnee, and see for yourself. Hope to see you soon, Woody. GMC, we're professional grade.
I know Woody well enough to know that he's got more to say. Woody?
Woody here, Woody Buick GMC, Naperville and Gurnee, Chicagoland's largest selection of the hot new Buick and Vista and Encore GX. Search Woody Buick GMC, Naperville and Gurnee, and see for yourself. Hope to see you soon, Woody. Buick, exceptional by design.
Thank you, Ross Cochran, who also, when he worked with me and for me at WGN, knew Orion well, and pointed out to me a memory I'd forgotten about Big O that I had mentioned at the top of this show, that Orion used to take 2-minute naps during commercial breaks, which was a pretty impressive skill at that hour of the morning. But Ross, thank you for producing this. Nothing gets done at Live from My Office without Ross Cochran putting a stamp on it. And you would never see or hear any of these without him. So thank you, Ross. And again, thank you to Woody. Thank you to Apt Electronics. Don't forget the phrase that pays. You can't milk an almond. Put it in an email. Send it to me at thecochranshow@gmail.com. And I will, as long as you include your mailing address, send you a $50 app gift card as long as supplies last. Again, thanks for being here. We'll see you next time on Live from My Office.
Thank you for listening to Live from My Office, a service of Monkey Run Productions. All rights reserved. The podcast is hosted by Steve Cochran, and it's mixed, edited, and produced by me, Ross Cochran. Steve is available for corporate speaking gigs. He would love to MC your event, and occasionally, he's funny. Thank you for listening. Head to cochranshow.com for more.